My name is Berta Hernandez. I'm a community health educator. I work here in the city. I have worked in the providing community health education services for more than 20 years. I was undocumented here. I used to clean houses and work in restaurants and recycle paper. I have two grown up children. One is 24, another is 19. And I am a member of the Left Party. It's a small socialist organization in the Bay Area, and have been active mostly in immigrant rights for the time that I have been living here for almost 30 years. Also participating in other political activities and campaigns in defense of working workers, etc. But mostly it has been in immigrant rights. Disenfranchised and very overexploited working class. So all the tourist industry, the restaurants, the convention centers, etc., continue to be maintained by workers who are having very low wages right now. There are other workers in the city because not all the workers are the same in the city. There are city workers, for example, they have better salaries, better benefits. We also have workers who are unionized, who have very good jobs in the construction or in the transportation industries, like in BART or in Muni, or other things like that. So carpenters, for example, that's a very important union who have very good salaries, and actually development have benefit them in many areas. But there is other workers in the city who have no the possibility of accessing that type of salaries or that type of benefit or protection. They are not unionized, some are undocumented, they don't speak the language, and they have a very precarious condition. But there is other workers also in the city, are the techies, the famous techies. So they are workers, they receive their salary, but the salary is even higher than the traditional unionized workers or the city workers who have put the city in a critical situation of affordability. So as a socialist candidate, I think that that will be my obligation to place all of these situations during the discussions that we will be having at the Board of Supervisors, advocate for all the measures that had to do with improving the life and the living conditions of the working class, and to put forward.
What's your view on housing, for example? And right now, a lot of multi-million-dollar condos are being built in San Francisco. Like, we need more, and yet workers who do your work or regular workers can't afford to live in San Francisco. They're a declining population. So what would your solution be for working class housing in San Francisco?
To me, right now, I will put forward immediate a moratorium on evictions. I think that housing is a human right. As a socialist, I don't think that nobody should live in the streets or should not be having access to decent living standards, from education, food, clothing, a place to live, etc. Those should be like things that need to be covered by this government, more in a city that is so rich. With all of this budget is almost to the $10 billion that they say everywhere. That is more budget than even for entire countries. So with all that, well, it's sufficient to just to make sure that nobody goes to the street. That's like the first emergency thing that you have to do. And I don't think that is even socialist. But as a socialist candidate, you have, or a socialist supervisor, I will have to push for that.
And who should pay for housing for working people in San Francisco?
Well, I think that we should tax the millionaires, the billionaires that we have in the city, and the big companies and the big tech companies that make profits of living in the city. They should be the ones who pay for everything, all the services related to housing. So if we are going to not allow nobody else to go to the streets, we also need to support house owners, homeowners, for example, in District 11, that just because they own their house doesn't mean that they are rich. sometimes they make their living because of the rent that other families are paying them. So it's the support that they need to pay their mortgage, to fix their houses, and that support needs to be from the government in terms of less taxes to the neighborhoods like District 11, and more taxes to the wealthy neighborhoods and wealthy districts of the city. So that will be a way to stabilizing that situation. So the other way of doing this housing situation is not just to continue building the more housing. It's just to looking at all the available housing possibilities, so everything that is empty right now that can be utilized, because there are many places here in the city, apartments and also houses that are not occupied, so we need to see why is the reason that they are not being used. And
For speculators, they're buying a lot of houses.
so we need to see all the stock of housing that we have in the city, and the first priority should be for people who have no houses, and then for the people who are at very high risk of being homeless. And even with the house, for example, some people have said when I go to speak in the neighborhood, but what about if they are abusing the property of the homeowner? And I'm like, I don't think that I'm saying that we should allow people to abuse some workers to abuse other workers. What we're saying is a human right. They cannot go to the streets. But if they are not paying their rent or they are abusing the property, it should be social workers to interfere and to participate and to try to have like a transition from those people who cannot pay the rent, maybe assistance to pay the rent, or to move to other units that they will be more affordable for them. But not just call the sheriff, do everything that you have to do to evict these people. I don't think that that's the solution.
Now, in San Francisco, there have been a growing number of continuous murders of African Americans, of Latinos, Alex Nieto, and part of it is possibly gentrification, that people don't want Latinos and blacks in San Francisco. What is happening in San Francisco as far as racism, as far as the police department and the Police Officers Association? Where do you stand on the role of the police in San Francisco?
Well, one of my points in my program, I call for the dissolution of the San Francisco Police Department, for all the killing, the police responsible for the killings in the city to be held accountable for their actions and to be fired. And I don't think that we need a police department in San Francisco. And obviously, the Police Association of San Francisco has all the support on the police. They don't even apologize for what has happened. And it's so obvious right now, their actions, how they have been. I think that the most out there was Alex Nieto with their 59 shots. Just a big example of what gentrification has done to this city, where you have a young man he was born here, was living in the neighborhood where he was born, and then the new neighbors called the police because he looks strange. He looks like a Latino kid, a Latino young man. So it's called the police on all fours, and 59 shots. He was already dead, and they continued to shoot. That's absolutely crazy, out of control. But it's not only the people who kill him. The whole department stands by his police officer. The police chief, the good thing we were able to get rid of him, stood with his police officers. The mayor stood with his police officers. And so it's everybody, and of course the police, the association also stood with them. When we saw clear that so it's not only this group of people who actually shoot him or Mario Woods or Almicar and the other people who has been killed, but the whole department as a whole, as a unit, are responsible, and they stand by their actions. So they need to go. People have some problems. Some has been a debate in the campaign about this. Some people think that this is extreme measure, that that if we do that, we will be living in chaos. I don't believe that we will be living in chaos. It's my experience living in this city that the police is always late, and it's always there when there is, if it's a crime it's already happened. So they have not prevented any crime. And when they intervene, something like the recent deaths have happened, but they are not the only ones. There have been other killings in the past, even for not paying your bus fare. So I think that all that type of petty crime of stealing here and there, it could be resolved with good jobs and opportunities for young people to go to universities and to have support. You will solve that particularity. And in terms of domestic violence issues, for example, it's a lot better to have community interventions, to have social workers or health educators to not only to intervene in crisis, but also to change the way we see the relationships among partners and family members, etc. And also the other issue, uh, the gang issue, no? The kids participating in gangs and then having criminal activities or fighting with each other. And also with that, there has been, even in San Francisco, has been demonstrated that programs like Calles, was a program in the mission, sponsored by RAP, Real Alternative Program, that they were a lot more successful into preventing death or criminal activity or violent activities with counselors that will go with these kids at night, pick them up, take them to play basketball, to eat, to talk, and it was a lot more way of preventing these kids to getting into trouble, because these kids that some people, I don't know, I had a conversation with somebody in the Facebook, so we're saying, but who is going to defend us from these I don't know how to say it, dudes, something like that. Like, what these dudes or something that you are referring are our kids. My son is 24 years old. It's a perfect cholo from the mission. Those are our kids. So we don't need the police to come here to persecute them and to kill them if they are misbehaving. If they are misbehaving, it should be a community intervention for us to participate. Okay, what's going on here? Why are you doing this? There is something that we need to do. So it's families, communities, counselors, social workers, other type of intervention. But we don't need the police to come here to be harassing and killing people. So I call in my program for self-policing and for community administration of justice in terms of with elected community councils in the district, in our district, but in general for all the districts in the city.
Now, one of the issues for young people is education, public education, and the cost of public education. City College used to be free in San Francisco. CSU, UC, young working class people, poor people can't afford to go to college, a lot of them. What do you think about privatization of education, charters, and the whole state of education in California? It seems like more money is spent on police, militarization of the police, than on public education.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And this is a trend that doesn't seem to stop. And it's like the whole political regime, not only in the city, but in California and in the country, is becoming harder in terms of repression and the utilization of these police forces, becoming very militarized with the new equipment that they have. Of course, the new liberties that they have with the whole Patriotic Act, so they can move more freely. And at the same time, we see the increasing of prisons, the increasing of deportation centers, and with that, the decrease on funding for education. And also this new this new phenomenon, but it has several years already, the question of the charterization of the public education. When they are not able to resolve problems of academic the kids don't have like the academic standards that the state has set for them. They create these schools, the charter schools. But it's a problem with those schools, because those schools, they don't have unions, for example, so the teachers are less protected than in other schools. So the kids, of course, are going to get less of a quality of education if you have teachers that are not having the protections that they can have in a unionized place. So. And also the curriculums. Some of those curriculums, for example, some are like militarized. It's very strange because in Oakland, for example, the parents would like their kids to behave. So they choose sometimes this more type of militarized curriculum.
And didn't Governor Brown set up 2 military charters in Oakland?
Yeah, he did. And it's
So he's taking money from public schools and putting them into military charter schools.
yes, or if not, it's like the case of the Edison Corporation in the Edison School. Like when my son was in first grade, that's when they took over the Edison School, and it was not a military curriculum, but it was a very business, techie-oriented curriculum. And it was a school that was the lowest performing school in San Francisco. But parents there, we were really happy. Our kids were learning a lot. It was 50% African American, 50% Latinos. They were bilingual in the playground, just playing around. The teachers were great, and just because their standardized tests were not having the result that they wanted, that didn't mean that the kids were not learning, and parents we were not happy with the education that was going on there. And it was very techy now that I think on the past. The orientation of that education that was more focused on technology and everything that has to do with that, and less in the humanities and social sciences, etc.
And they put the kids in front of computers, young children, that it has an effect on the children, psychological effect, physical effect. And Pearson, these companies that make money from more tests, they want more and more tests. They want less and less teachers. If the kids are in front of the computer, you don't need teachers. Of course, the service workers are non-union, the teachers are non-union. So do you think you would be opposed to more charters in San Francisco?
Definitely, yes, I'm opposed to charters. I have been for a long time, and I had to experience the fight against a charter. It was horrible.
What happened?
It was really bad. The union was against the charter. A group of parents that I was part of, we were against the charter. Another community organizations also opposed the charter. But it was so strong that when we went to the different hearings at the Board of Education, we will expose our case. And it was like the Board of Education didn't see us, didn't hear us. We are telling them we are against, and they will say, oh, we are listening to the parents. And because the parents want charter schools, we are going to have charter school. And we are here saying we don't want charter schools. It was like a unknown dimension, how called that program in TV. It's like, it's so strange. I even had a conversation with the principal of the school because I told her I don't like the curriculum because in this line it says that any behavior that disrupts the learning process, it won't be tolerated. And I told her, and I'm sure my son is going to disrupt the learning process, and actually I think that that's part of the learning process. So she told me, oh, don't worry, Sebastian is so well behaved, like the other Latino kids, but there are some behaviors, very bizarre behaviors of the African American kids. And I was like, I have heard that in the patio, in the yard, from other Latino parents. And I will talk with them. I will confront them. I will explain why that's not appropriate and not true, and that's crazy and plain racism. I will talk to them. But from the principal of a 50% Latino and 50% African American school, this is unacceptable. You are telling that to a parent. So you are putting the fire, wood into the fire of a division that exists among this community. Well, I told everybody, I went to the Board of Supervisors, I wrote a letter, I put a complaint. They passed over all of us. And they won. They imposed the school, they imposed the charter, the Edison Corporation on Edison School.
Now, San Francisco is controlled by the Democratic Party, Democratic mayor, Democratic Board of Supervisors, Democratic president, Democratic legislature. What does it mean to have the Democrats in control of our city, our state, and our country? And do you think that they're going to solve the problems of working people?
No, I don't think that they are going to solve anything. You can say as a socialist that we understand that the two parties are the pillars of the imperialism, U.S. imperialism, and how they benefit the big corporations, the big banks, and they are able to co-opt everything that moves and have their clothes, the Democrats have the clothes of the fighters and the defenders of working people, and they are so intelligent to, I don't know how to say that,
Persuade people.
to take in every movement that it wants to move out of, yeah. they co-opt all the movement. But living in San Francisco, like every day, like having raised a family in this city, it's so amazing to see how the Democratic Party operates in this particular town. Where the Republicans don't even exist, or if they exist, they are so few that nobody cares. And it is a wing of the Democratic Party who has taken all the positions and of the Republicans, and then we have another wing of the Democratic Party that's a little bit more liberal. But in general, yeah, this is a liberal city. But the racism always existed. And that's, you can see the city through the years and how, for example, African Americans were placed first in what's the name? West Tradition, and then they were just driven out to Bayview Hunters Point for particular reasons of having them to work in very contaminated areas that it's continued to be Bayview Hunters Point. And then how they had the Chinese in Chinatown also for particular reasons. And then the new immigrations of the 80s with the Latin American, mostly Central American immigrants who came here. But it was always a very separatist politics. These communities were never intended to be part of the American, even working class of San Francisco. You always had these big differences between the incomes and the benefits and the status of American working class in the city and non-American working class in the city, or African Americans who are Americans, but it looks like they are not in terms of how they were treated and the resources that they had and the possibilities that they have for making a better living.
Now, ethnic cleansing, Latinos, African Americans are being driven out of San Francisco. What about the development like Hunters Point, Bayview? There have been a lot of issues of radioactive material in the soil, asbestos. Are you in favor of continuing to build housing and redevelopment in that area when there's a danger of health and safety problems?
No, of course not. I'm completely against. And there was a proposition that we presented several years ago, maybe 15 years ago. It was reparation for Bayview Hunters Point, precisely because of the environmental damage that was caused to that area. And we thought that the people who were living there, the residents, they needed to be compensated for the damages to their health. But what happened was that those residents were drawn out of the area. At one point was mostly African American. Now we are at 3% in the whole city of San Francisco. And then it was started a process of cleaning up. It was a lot of, and this has to do with other questions in terms of the Democratic Party in the city. They are really gangsters. They have all these consultants and then these contracts with this company and the other company, and they are their friends, and then they have like political favors. And they did.
So you're saying Nancy Pelosi and Ed Lee aren't honest brokers?
No, they are not. No, they are not. So that's what they did in Bayview Hunters Point. And then so it was not only the driving out of the residents there. They didn't also compensate it as we proposed it, but also is the new development of all of this new housing that is very expensive, has attracted workers also. But workers they have more, they are not the rich people. They are just workers who are very high skilled in a new technology or a new, I don't know, line of work that is very, very well paid. But also they can afford that, but they have made the city, no, I don't think that but the phenomenon has made the city less affordable for the rest of us. But in terms of their health, that's crazy. Because even if they make a lot of money, they shouldn't be put there in those conditions. It's a very dangerous, the contamination that exists in that area.
Now, the Bay Area now there's a social crisis. Working class people are being told that they can't afford to live here. Many workers have to commute 2 or 3 hours. workers, nonprofit workers, you're a nonprofit worker, can't afford to live in San Francisco. It seems to be an emergency situation for a lot of working people. What would a socialist do to solve this social crisis here in the Bay Area and what's happening nationally?
Well, I think that there are many things to be done. One of those was one of the reason why I decided to run for supervisor of District 11. I think that's very important that in any place that we see possibilities of presenting our ideas and being part of the discussion, we should do it. And if I win and I'm able to go to the Board of Supervisors, it will be to call for all the organizations and the working class organizations and the unions, etc., to start to be working together into having solutions for the working class in the city. Because it's impossible that if I win, for example, I will solve the issues of the city. That's just
So are you in favor of a working class party in San Francisco and nationally?
Yes, yes, I am. I'm part of the Peace and Freedom Party here in California. I think it's extremely important. There have been other, no, I don't say experiments, but other efforts like the Labor Party. They just like maybe 10, 15 years ago. It was a lot of effort for many people in the country to try to put that project together. The Green Party, in a moment, when they ran Nader the first time and the second time, they were kind of putting together an alternative more from the point of view of the ecologists, but many middle class people and also intellectuals, but also working class. But they become, I think, that less working class with the time. They never were completely working class, but you could say that it was an alternative. Right now, they are kind of like dissolving more and more their program and the way also they fight or they operate. It looks to me that they are more like in the elections every time, and they are not like fighting every day. So yes, we really need a working class party in the United States. We have our Peace and Freedom Party here in California. I think that that's a great example, but this obviously is not enough, and it's very important that we do something about it.
Now, one of the things that's happened in San Francisco and the United States is more and more workers who are doing public work, taking care of mentally people who have mental health problems, or housing workers, or food service workers, or helping the homeless, are in nonprofits. What is your view about the privatization of public services? In San Francisco, there are a large number of workers in nonprofits are paid much less than city workers who are doing the same work, and they're paid by the city.
Yes, I have been working in the nonprofits for almost more than 25 years, maybe. And so I know that the work I do is more than the work is done by a city employee, and I get paid less. And it shouldn't be like that. I really don't like it. I think that we should be public employees, and the city needs to take responsibility for the work that we do, including the workforce. Sometimes we do even the more complicated work. I used to work in the time of the AIDS epidemic, so it was really heavy, what happened at that time, and not only in the part of many people dying and a lot of crises that were happening, but also substance use, and to be working with people who were using injection drugs, so what's the time of the needle exchange, etc., etc. So it's a lot of intense work. Just in my area, there are other areas, of course, and we don't get to pay what we should. So yes, I am in support of being recognized as a public employees and to be employees of the city. There is another element, however, on this that I think that's important to recognize, because there are people who are like the nonprofit, how they say, complex I don't know what is. They are like really against the nonprofits, and that's not my position because I think that they have a reason at one point of their history for their existence. For example, in AIDS epidemic, I work for the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, and the reason why they started to function was because the city was not providing services at that time for the gay community who were dying. So it was the gay community organized themselves in their apartments with their first hotline, with their phones, to attend to their own people. So I think that's the history. Then other things happened, but it was an absolutely need. And I'm so glad that happened. Many people, because of that leadership, not from the city, but from the people who were affected themselves and their loved ones, that was able to create the services and the medical care, the treatments, even the drugs that they have right now that they make many people to survive. And now to have AIDS as a chronic disease. But it was not because of the CDC or the federal government or of the city. It was the patients themselves. And maybe it was a whole revolution in terms of public health with the AIDS epidemic, maybe because it was a very educated and politicized community, the one who was affected, they were able to do that. But many of their communities benefit from it. For example, until now, people without documents in the immigrant community who have AIDS, they have access to all care. No questions asked about their immigration status. And that has to do with what happened with the leadership of the gay community in the city. My work, for example, provides mental health to Latino immigrant community. From taking in consideration culture and something very important. When this organization was created, people were just putting labels or being crazy just because you have a different way of related to the world, or a different perspective, or because you speak another language. And the people who put together this organization were young psychologists that will say, well, you are the way you are because society is a mess. If you were not like this, you really will be bad.
The tremendous stress in a capitalist society is driving people crazy.
Exactly. So it is the levels of exploitation and the levels of oppression, and these are Chicanos in my work. So they went all the way to the historical wound of the invasion, etc.
This is a stressful society.
It is very stressful, and these people, me, for example, because I was a client before I worked there, sometimes to survive, you need familiar things. You need to belong because you have been dispossessed when you cross the border from your family, your society, your status. Even if you were not rich, you were somebody there. Here you are nobody. So to have those spaces of recovery, I'm not saying of solution. Nobody in my world thinks that we're solving anything. It's just spaces of recovery for people who have been hit very hard. And so their well-being, emotional well-being has been really damaged. So the city was not going to provide it. They never did. Now it's very common, and it's like a very new age to talk about cultural competence, traditional healing practices, I don't know, comprehensive, non-Western things of treating out the patient. But when my job started for almost 40 years ago, that was not the case. So they have to confront the government. They have to confront the psychiatric and mental health associations with a lot of things in order to survive and to provide mental health services to a community who was not being taken care of. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not like some people that are like nonprofits should just not exist. They don't have any reason to be here. I think that there was a reason why they started to. But it becomes through the years in this very cheap labor of maquiladoras that you that you can do everything for very small funds, and it's very stressful on workers who are doing these jobs. It's very complicated. So yes, I would like to be part of the city. I would like to be a city employee myself, but I would like to have the independence and the autonomy that my organization provides to the practice that I have and to the way of services are delivered. and not as so formal as the city will deliver and provide mental health services. I would like to have to keep that independence and that creativity, but with my benefits.
Other issues, San Francisco and the Bay Area has become the technology center of the world. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are coming here. And these technology companies, Twitter, are given tax subsidies in San Francisco. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg bought a $10 million mansion here in San Francisco. And some of these companies are controlling the media. And Facebook has been censoring issues of Palestinian rights. They censored the Native American struggle and Standing Rock with the Sioux tribes. And other struggles are being censored and controlled by these media monopolies. What do you think about the role of these technology barons and the billionaires who are running the tech industry?
They need to pay their taxes, more taxes than the rest of us, definitely. And they are to, the city has I think that it has the obligation to put a stop to them, to these companies. Because they are doing all of these humongous businesses and all these profits because of the workers of San Francisco, because we are not gone. We are here. The problem is the levels of poverty that are unbelievable. Here, just my neighbors of District 10, and I don't know why they are District 10, if they are just 2 blocks away, that is Sunnydale. You go there and it's just like you are in the worst parts of Latin America. How can that be in this city that has this company who makes so many millions of dollars and is on the shoulders of this working class? We are still here. We have not gone because the workers who have not gone from the city because we don't have the money to pay the first rent, the last rent, the deposit, even the truck to move out of here. So the conditions of the living conditions are brutal. My little studio here is a palace. There are studios like this in this neighborhood that you have a family in each of the little fabricated rooms that you are making. At least I have my whole family here. But there are other families who is like 20 people living in a space like this.
And the roads are becoming clogged up. There's a trouble getting around in San Francisco, and part of it is Uber and the gig economy. People have to supplement their income by working as an Uber. Why aren't they regulating these companies? And they're creating thousands and thousands of cars coming into San Francisco and throughout the Bay Area.
I don't know what's going to happen, but this city just I don't know. They have no more vergüenza, and I don't know how to say that in English. They have no more shame. Because they are all for free market. They have been selling this city like they don't care anymore, like they are not accountable to anything. Lee is just a servant of the big corporation and the big business. They don't care. That has gone to that point. This city is so crazy that when you have a worker who makes 1,000 per month, that I know many, because I know all the cleaning ladies of the other side of town. And then you have an apartment that is going to be rented for 7,000, a 2-bedroom apartment. So where do you want people to live? It's a shiny town in the city. You have not seen it yet, but maybe it will emerge. Because all the camps, that you have the camping tents around the city, it's a Chinatown. I don't know how you say Chinatown, but favela, a ciudad perdida. Here in the park also there are homeless are already building their little housing structures. Because of they have like
So is capitalism creating this?
Well, of course, the bourgeoisie, as a socialist and as a communist, we know that there is no solution for this. And even Trotsky will say it in the transitional program a long time ago, that the conditions are not mature for revolution for being brought in, because the capitalism is incapable of producing benefits for the humankind. Not even for the working class, for humanity. Because this force of capitalism or the bourgeoisie, that in order to increase their profits, they are only destroying the planet, they are destroying everything to their path, and we don't have too many years left if we don't take power. That's the reality. And I think that they know. It looks like in San Francisco they know that there is no more place to go. Because is like they are acting exactly like there is no hope for capitalism. And because there's no hope for capitalism, I'm going to make my pockets full, and I'm going just to look for my own particular benefit and life. They are incapable of providing an alternative society and alternative solutions for the population as a whole. And San Francisco is just a beautiful, horrible example of that situation.
And Nancy Pelosi, who's the leader of the Democrats in the House, votes for war, trillions of dollars for Iraq and these military expenditures. Dianne Feinstein votes for more militarization and supports privatization of education and our society. The development of a working class political alternative. Do you have much hope? Because it seems like, at least in San Francisco, there aren't many workers left who even live in San Francisco.
No, we live here. We live here. It's just, I'm a very hopeful person, but it's complicated. The ideological issues are important, are very important because I think that socialists need to rethink and really to make an assessment of what we want. If you call yourself a socialist, it's because you want to transform society and you want to take down capitalism and you want to build, to have a revolution and to build a socialist society. You don't do that by ignoring the other. You don't do that by ignoring the elections. You don't do that for fighting with everybody. I know that there are political important differences. I have been a Trotskyist for many years, all my life. However, it's like people is blind. Because those ideological things, instead of telling you, you need to do something about it, and you need to start to relate with the other, and to start working together in the things that are happening right now, for example, in the District 11, in the District 9, in District 10, there are socialists in this city who works in the unions. That they should be, work in your unions, that's perfect, that's wonderful. What about coming to the other places of town where we have no unions and you help us to build those unions and those conditions? What about then the labor council, for example, because I know that there are socialists there. Why have not been a proposal to expel the police association from the San Francisco Labor Council?
They're not members of the San Francisco Labor Council.
There are no,
But they have voted against firing Sir.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I don't know if I hope it is going to happen when it's the new generation that emerged after the Occupy movement. It gave me hope also. It's a very confused generation, but with a lot of desire to learn things from the past, to investigate who are we, what is socialism, what we have been doing. And those young people, I think that their dynamic was really positive, but it just come down again.
Now, the growth of right wing in this country, Trump, Donald Trump, and open racism, open xenophobia, and anti-women, sexist, homophobic forces. First of all, what gives the rise to somebody like Trump in the United States today in 2016?
I think that Trump is just talking about, he is expressing, well, he is ridiculous and crazy, no? That we know that. However, the thing that he's saying, for example, in terms of American people not being as great as before, as U.S. not being as great as before, as having the industry move overseas to other places, he's right. And I think that the people who supported him, they are being hit by that, because it has been a process of the disindustrialization in this country. And it has to do with capitalism, because capitalists went overseas to make more profit to places where they were going to find cheaper labor and no environmental protections. So they were happy just making more money. They don't care about anything else. They did that, and they produce a big competitors. You have Brazil, you have all the BRICS. You have Russia, you have India, you have South Africa, and you have China. So I think that he has said it like 200 times, China, Trump. He's right. China is the big competitor of United States. So I think that this particular condition of the economy right now, that we are living in this historical period, is what is giving birth, or is being expressed in a deformed way in what Trump is saying. Of course, he's a particular character, and then he introduced also very right-wing ideology.
And this is going on around the world, a rise of nationalism and xenophobia in Europe and other countries. So the rise of neo-fascism and fascism is a threat. Do you see that as a threat to the working people around the world?
Yes, I do. That's very complicated. I think that's, yes, I see that rising everywhere. I think that everything moving to the right. Everything. The Republicans are more to the right. The Democrats, the left, the working class organizations, the union, and then you have the emerging of also very reactionary forces. For example, ISIS, reactionary forces that were somehow created by U.S. imperialism, and at the same time they were other forces are created to contrarrest or as a contrapart of the imperialism forces, but it's in a very reactionary way, and fundamentalist policies and fundamentalist current and movements that are very dangerous to humankind, both sides. Yes, exactly. I'm the only socialist running in San Francisco, and maybe many places, and ready or not, it doesn't matter. I think that we need to step up and do it.